On a quiet street in New York, where ordinary families once dreamed of peaceful nights, stands a house that refuses to forget. The Amityville Horror House looks peaceful from the outside, with its calm windows staring like silent eyes into the world. But inside those walls, something else lives, something that remembers every scream, every tear, every shadow that moved in the darkness. In 1974, the night changed forever. A family slept, unaware that death was walking through their rooms. When morning came, the world heard about the murders, and fear spread like a whisper through the town. But what people did not understand was that the house itself had awakened. Some say the blood opened a doorway. Others say the spirits were already there, waiting. When new families moved in, they thought the past was only a story. But the house did not let them forget. Doors opened by themselves. Voices whispered in empty rooms. Cold air touched their skin like invisible fingers. Children spoke to unseen friends. And mirrors reflected shadows that did not belong to anyone standing there. Late at night, when silence covered the street, something walked through the corridors. Footsteps echoed on the stairs. Someone laughed softly in the dark. People said they saw a woman standing near the windows, watching the road, her eyes full of sorrow. Others claimed a dark figure sat in the corners, listening, waiting, breathing without breath. Some visitors believe these are ghosts, souls trapped between worlds. Others believe something older lives there, something beyond ghosts. In Islamic tradition, they might be called Jinn, beings made of smokeless fire, unseen but powerful, able to move through walls and influence minds. Perhaps the Amityville house became a gathering place for such spirits, feeding on fear, feeding on memory, feeding on the continuity of terror that never truly ended. The house became famous. Books were written, movies were made, and people across the world heard its story. But fame did not quiet the whispers inside. Every night, the house stands in silence. Yet not truly silent. It remembers. It watches. It waits for the next footsteps to cross its threshold. For the next heart to feel its presence. For the next soul to question what is real and what is unseen. And if you ever stand in front of that house, listening to the wind touch its walls, you may feel something watching you from behind the curtains. Something that never left. Something that never will. The night of the Amityville murders did not begin with screams. It began with silence. A heavy, unnatural silence that settled over the house like a living creature. Waiting, listening, breathing in the darkness. On that cold night in 1974, the DeFeo family slept peacefully in their rooms, unaware that something was moving through the corridors, step by step, room by room. Some say it was only a man with a weapon. Others believe something unseen walked with him, guiding him, whispering into his mind, continuing a darkness that had already begun long before he pulled the trigger. As each shot echoed through the house, the walls absorbed the sound. The floors absorbed the vibrations, and the air absorbed the fear. The house did not forget. It recorded everything like a silent witness. And when morning came, the house was no longer just a building. It had become a living archive of terror. Neighbors gathered, police arrived, and the world learned about the brutal murders. But the house remained still, as if watching everyone who stepped inside, as if listening to every word spoken about it. Some believe the spirits of the murdered family never truly left. They say the shock of their deaths trapped their souls in the house. replaying the final moments again and again, walking through the same rooms, opening the same doors, calling out in voices no one could hear. Late at night, when the world outside sleeps, the ghosts are said to rise, wandering through the bedrooms, standing beside the beds where they once slept, searching for peace that never came. But there are whispers that the story goes deeper, older, and darker. Some say the land itself was cursed long before the house was built, that ancient rituals and buried secrets opened a doorway between worlds. In many traditions, unseen beings called Jinn exist alongside humans, watching silently, moving through our world without being seen. It is believed that intense emotions, fear, hatred, violence, can attract them. The murders, filled with terror and blood, may have invited these entities, giving them a permanent place within the walls of Amityville. Imagine the night after the murders, when the house was empty, when no humans slept inside, when only shadows remained. Imagine whispers moving through the halls, footsteps on the stairs, and unseen eyes watching from every corner. The spirits of the dead, confused and restless, and the Jinn, curious and drawn to the energy of the tragedy, sharing the same space, creating a continuous presence that never faded. From that night forward, the house was no longer just a crime scene. It became a living story, continuing itself through time. Every creak of wood, every flicker of light, every cold draft became part of its memory. The past did not stay in the past. It flowed forward, touching everyone who came after, connecting every resident, every visitor, every storyteller in an unbroken chain of fear and fascination. The murders were not just an ending. They were the first chapter in a story that refuses to close, a dark beginning that echoes through decades, carried by ghosts who remember and Jinn who never forget, continuing to whisper through the Amityville house, long after the world believes the night is over. When the next family moved into the Amityville house, they believed the past was just a story told by newspapers and whispered by neighbors. The rooms looked clean, the windows shone in the sunlight, and the silence felt peaceful. But peace in that house was only a disguise, a thin layer covering something that never slept. The first nights were quiet, almost normal. But then the house began to speak. At first, it was only small sounds, soft knocks in the walls, faint creaks on the stairs, the feeling that someone was walking behind them when no one was there. The family tried to ignore it, telling themselves it was just an old house settling in the cold. But the sounds continued, night after night, following a strange pattern, as if someone was repeating the same actions again and again, continuing a routine that never ended. Doors began to open by themselves. Cabinets slammed shut. Objects changed places, appearing in rooms where no one had touched them. A rocking chair moved slowly in the dark, even when the air was still. The house was not just making noise, it was interacting, responding, reacting, as if an invisible presence was aware of every movement of the living. Children woke up screaming, saying someone was standing near their beds. A little girl spoke calmly about a friend who visited her every night, someone who did not look like a person but felt real. She said he stood in the corner, smiling in the darkness, watching her sleep. Her parents felt fear crawling under their skin, but the child was not afraid. It was as if the unseen presence had chosen her, continuing its silent connection across generations. Mirrors reflected shadows that disappeared when someone turned around. Footsteps echoed in empty hallways. A voice whispered names in the night, calling from rooms where no one stood. Cold air filled certain parts of the house, freezing breath and skin, even when heaters were on. People felt watched, followed, surrounded by eyes they could not see. Some believed these were the ghosts of the murdered family, trapped in a loop of memory, replaying their final moments. They imagined the spirits walking through the rooms, opening doors they once opened, standing in the same places, repeating the same movements as if time had stopped for them. Their presence felt sad, lost, confused, forever tied to the house that witnessed their deaths. But others believed something else was also there, something not human, something older. In many cultures, Jinn are said to live alongside humans, unseen, intelligent, and capable of influence. They are drawn to strong emotions and tragic events. The terror of the murders may have attracted them, allowing them to settle into the house, sharing it with the restless ghosts. They may have moved objects, whispered into minds, created fear to feed on the energy of the living. People who stayed in the house felt sudden anger, sadness, and fear without reason. They had nightmares of dark figures, watching from the corners of rooms. They woke up at the same time every night, feeling someone standing beside their bed. It was as if the house was guiding their thoughts, continuing the same emotional cycle for every resident, writing their fear into its history. The house did not stop. Every new resident experienced something strange. Every visitor felt something unusual. The stories did not end, they continued, growing, evolving, spreading across the world like a never-ending echo. The Amityville house became a storyteller of its own, repeating its dark tale through sounds, shadows, and unseen beings, pulling every listener deeper into its spell, night after night, year after year, without ever falling silent. Some say a house can remember. Some say walls can listen. And in the Amityville house, memory never fades. After the murders, people believed the dead had left, that their souls had gone to another world. But many who entered the house felt that the family never truly departed. Their presence lingered, like smoke trapped in sealed rooms, repeating the same moments again and again. At night, when the world outside fell silent, the house seemed to awaken. People reported seeing figures standing in doorways, watching quietly. A woman in a pale dress was seen near the upstairs windows, her face expressionless, her eyes fixed on the street, as if waiting for something that would never arrive. Some swore they saw children walking down the hallway, their footsteps soft, their laughter distant and hollow, disappearing into walls that should not allow anyone to pass. These were not sudden appearances. They came again and again, creating a strange continuity, as if the house was playing the same scene every night. The spirits seemed trapped in a loop, unable to understand that their lives had ended, unable to leave the rooms where their hearts had once beaten. Visitors felt sudden sadness, as if invisible emotions were leaking into their minds, memories that did not belong to them yet felt painfully real. Sometimes, voices were heard, soft crying in the darkness, a man calling out a name, a whisper repeating a sentence over and over, as if the spirit was stuck in a single moment of time. People felt hands brushing their arms, gentle yet cold, like a touch from another world. Some saw faces in the glass, reflections that did not match the living. But the ghosts were not alone. Many believe that spirits of the dead do not always walk alone in such places. Where tragedy is deep, where blood has stained walls, other unseen beings gather. In Islamic tradition, jinn are said to exist in parallel with humans, invisible yet present, capable of sharing the same spaces. Some are peaceful, some are curious, and some are dangerous. The intense fear and pain of the murders may have attracted them, giving them a reason to stay. Imagine ghosts wandering through the house, lost and confused, while jinn move silently around them, observing, influencing, whispering. The ghosts repeat their final moments, while the jinn manipulate shadows, sounds, and human emotions. Together, they create an atmosphere so heavy that even the strongest minds feel weak inside those walls. People who slept in the house dreamed of being watched by shadowy figures with glowing eyes. They felt someone sitting on their chest, unable to move, unable to scream. They woke up with the feeling that someone had been standing beside their bed for hours. It was as if the spirits and jinn were sharing the same stage, performing the same haunting play for every new audience. The ghosts did not fade with time. Decades passed, new owners arrived, renovations changed the walls, but the sightings continued. The house carried its spirits forward through generations, like a story that refuses to end. Each new witness added another layer to the legend, another chapter to the continuity of fear that defined Amityville. And in the deepest hours of the night, when silence becomes too loud, some believe the ghosts still walk, and the jinn still watch, sharing the darkness, waiting, repeating, remembering, and ensuring that the story of the Amityville house never truly dies. Some believe the Amityville house is haunted by ghosts. Others believe something far older and more mysterious lives there. Something that was never human. Something that watched long before the murders and remained long after. In many ancient traditions, there are beings that exist beside us, unseen, unheard, yet always present. In Islamic belief, they are called jinn, creatures made of smokeless fire, invisible to human eyes, capable of moving through walls, reading emotions, and influencing thoughts. When tragedy struck the Amityville house, it was not just a crime, it was a signal. Fear, pain, and blood filled the rooms, and such intense energy is believed to attract unseen entities. Some say the night of the murders opened a doorway, a thin veil between worlds, and through that veil, something stepped in and decided never to leave. After the murders, the house did not feel empty. It felt occupied. Residents described a presence that was not like a ghost, no human shape, no familiar feeling. It felt intelligent, aware, watching. They felt sudden waves of anger, sadness, and terror that did not belong to them. They argued more, slept less, dreamed darker dreams. It was as if something was whispering into their minds, guiding their emotions, continuing a cycle of fear that never stopped. Late at night, people heard deep voices in the basement, speaking in unknown languages. Some heard chanting, others heard laughter that did not sound human. Shadows moved against the walls, not shaped like people but like tall, twisting figures that vanished when lights were turned on. Dogs refused to enter certain rooms, standing frozen at the doorway, staring at something humans could not see. Children spoke of dark figures with glowing eyes, standing in the corners of their rooms. They said these beings watched them sleep, sat on their chests, and whispered stories about the house. Adults woke up unable to move. feeling pressure on their bodies, sensing a presence inches away from their faces. Some believed these were jinn interacting with the living, feeding on fear, enjoying the confusion and terror of humans. The ghosts of the murdered family were said to wander through the house, repeating their final moments. But the jinn were different. They did not repeat, they observed. They influenced. They played with the living, continuing the story by creating new fear for every new resident. The ghosts were trapped in memory, but the jinn were active, intelligent, and aware of every heartbeat inside the house. Some paranormal investigators claimed the house felt layered, like multiple worlds overlapping. They felt human spirits walking beside something darker, something that did not feel human at all. They believed the ghosts were confused souls, while the jinn were ancient residents who had chosen the house as their territory. Together, they created a continuous haunting, a never-ending cycle of activity that refused to fade with time. As decades passed, people tried to cleanse the house, renovate it, change its appearance, and erase its history. But the feeling remained. Visitors still reported strange sensations, sudden chills, and the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. The continuity of fear never broke. Every new story sounded like a continuation of the last, as if the house itself was guiding the narrative, ensuring that its legend never faded. And in the deepest part of the night, when the house is silent and the world outside sleeps, some believe the ghosts still walk their old paths, and the jinn still sit in the shadows, watching, listening, waiting, continuing a story that began with blood and never truly ended. As the years passed, the Amityville house stopped being just a house. It became a story that refused to stay silent. Writers arrived with notebooks full of fear. Investigators arrived with cameras and recorders, and filmmakers arrived with visions of shadows and screams. Every person who stepped inside carried the house's whispers back to the world, turning its dark memory into pages, scenes, and legends that traveled far beyond New York. Books were written that described walls bleeding, objects flying through the air, and voices speaking from nowhere. Readers across the world felt chills as they turned each page, imagining the house breathing in the darkness. The words did not end the story, they extended it. Each sentence added another layer, another echo, another continuation of fear that reached into millions of minds. Then came the movies. Screens lit up with glowing windows, silent hallways, and figures standing in the shadows. Audiences watched families move in, watched fear grow in their eyes, watched unseen hands open doors, and unseen voices whisper in the night. The Amityville house became immortal on film, repeating its story again and again. Every time the movie played, every time someone pressed play in a dark room. But with every book and every movie, something strange happened. People who visited the real house felt the same fear they had read about. They felt as if the story was not just fiction, but a living continuation. Some believed the attention itself strengthened the presence inside. In many traditions, spirits grow stronger when remembered. When spoken of, when feared. The ghosts of Amityville were no longer forgotten souls. They were remembered by millions. And then there were the jinn. Some believe that jinn are drawn not only to tragedy, but also to attention and emotion. As the world focused on the house, as fear and fascination spread, the energy surrounding Amityville grew. It was as if unseen beings gathered, listening to the stories, feeding on the fear, using the attention to deepen their connection to the house. Every time someone spoke its name, every time someone watched a movie or read a book, the story continued in another form. Visitors reported feeling something heavy in the air, as if the house knew it was famous. They felt watched, not just by ghosts, but by something aware of its own legend. Shadows seemed darker, silence seemed louder, and footsteps seemed closer. Some said they heard laughter when no one was there, as if something inside the house enjoyed being feared, enjoyed being remembered. The continuity of the legend became endless. New movies were made, new documentaries released, new stories told by tourists and investigators. Each generation heard the tale and added its own chapter. The house aged, but the story did not. Time could not erase it. Even renovations and new owners could not silence the whispers that lived in the world's imagination. At night, some believe the ghosts walk through the rooms, aware that people across the world are watching their story unfold. Some believe the Jinn sit in the shadows, listening to the echoes of their name in human voices, smiling at the fear they inspire. The house, now a symbol of horror, continues to live in books, in films, in nightmares, and in whispered conversations, repeating itself, expanding itself, pulling more minds into its spell, ensuring that the story of Amityville never fades, never ends, and never truly sleeps. And so the Amityville house still stands, silent on the outside, yet alive with memories that refuse to die. Its walls carry the weight of screams. Its floors remember footsteps that never truly left. And its shadows still move with stories whispered by ghosts and unseen Jinn. Time has passed, families have changed, and the world has moved forward. But the house remains, watching, listening, waiting, continuing its dark legacy through every story told, every book read, and every film watched. Perhaps the real horror is not what happened in 1974, but the fact that the house never let the world forget. If these shadows, spirits, and mysteries have pulled you into their spell, then keep exploring the unseen with us. Share this story with those who love suspense and the unknown, and let them feel the chill that still surrounds Amityville. Subscribe for more dark histories, haunted places, and whispered secrets that history tried to bury, but never could. Because some houses are not just built with bricks and wood. Some are built with fear, memory, and something that never sleeps.